I would like to start first with someone who for me is the single example of thought leadership. And I wouldn't even say leadership. I would say stewardship. Raja is a steward. He was like this for me before in the industry, when he was creating new ways of interaction between the brand and the consumer. But today we will be hearing more of how the corporate life needs to adapt and how much the stewardship is important, because it's all about people at the end of the day. It's not about anything else but us, the humans. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about how brands cope with the current situation in a coronavirus pandemic crisis. This is, I think, for the first time in the open internet, we open such discussion on such a high level. And I am nothing less but honored and grateful to invite here to our virtual studio from Cincinnati, Mr. Rajamannar.
Really appreciate your kind introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to each and every one of you from around the world. Wish we were connecting in much better times, but it is what it is. And we are in the midst of a crisis. And when I look back at my career of about 35 years now, I had seen the dot-com bubble, I had seen 9/11, and I had seen the 2008-2009 financial crisis. But nothing comes close to the magnitude and the globality of the pandemic that we are experiencing right now, and sadly so. Now, as marketers, we are very directly impacted because most of the companies look at marketing as an expense line as opposed to a revenue generation function in the near term. And from that perspective, how do marketers really manage? Of course, we have got a lot of expense cuts that will happen around the world. And I've been speaking to a number of CMOs, and they're all in the same boat, trying to figure out, okay, if our marketing dollars have to come down, how do we best manage, etc. But I think the focus has to be somewhere else, which is throughout the year, day in and day out, we keep trying to figure out how do we generate more sales, how to generate more leads, how do we increase the revenues, how do we keep our existing consumers and manage through the entire life cycle. But there are times when you have to sell, which is probably all the time. But there are more important times when you have to serve. This is one of those moments in our lives where I think we have to really focus on serving people. We have to look at opportunities for sure, because not all of us are philanthropic organizations, and we have obligations and commitments to our stockholders, to our shareholders, and various stakeholders. And in order to keep the lights running, you have to keep generating business and you have to continue the growth momentum. But however, what we need to realize is that we may sense some opportunities in some areas, but we should not get opportunistic in this kind of a time. We as marketers, both individually as well as a community, have tremendous resources at our disposal. We have got phenomenal networks at our disposal. And we have got creativity, which very few other functions can really boast of, right? So how do we really bring all this together? And as a community and as an individual marketer, how do we make sure that we make a difference to the community first and foremost? And of course, how do we continue to make sure that our businesses keep thriving or growing or at least surviving in the current scenario? There are a whole bunch of good intentioned marketers who are trying to do the right thing for the company, for the business, etc. But there have been instances where some folks probably are not very well attuned or empathetic enough that their strategies might fall flat on their face and you might be seen as tone deaf. We'll talk about it a little later when we have our panel members. But something which I wanted to say is that this is the time that we need to have our fingers on the pulse of our people, of our consumers, of our customers. make sure that we are reading the situation very rightly. Make sure that we are understanding their pain points and we sincerely and genuinely try to solve their pain points and enable their success or enable their rehabilitation or enable their even survival. And I think automatically the business results will anyway follow through. When you stick with people in tough times, they will stick with you when the times are good. And I think this is something which is very important, particularly in the age of performance marketing, where you are trying to literally spend every $100 and then figuring out what you're getting in return. We need to redefine how we look at our marketing activities, how we look at our marketing strategies, and how do you make sure that our brand shows up not in an opportunistic way, but in an appropriate way, in a well connected kind of a fashion, in a very sensitive and a sensible fashion. That's what we should be really focused on. Charity begins at home. And I wanted to share a couple of examples of what we are trying to do at MasterCard, where I am the global CMO. At MasterCard, for example, we have joined the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation to raise about $125 million for accelerated drug testing or therapeutic testing for COVID-19. So we're trying to help find cures. We're also contributing a matching contribution. If any of our employees are putting money behind a charity that helps the current situation, we are doing a matching contribution. And when we are looking at small businesses, these are the ones which are really and truly most vulnerable. And they don't have staying power. And if today we don't support and help them, sadly, a number of them will go out of business. So we have just created a $250 million fund to see how we can help these small businesses go through this current process, survive through the current crisis, and hopefully come out on the other end stronger, and hopefully they'll be there for a long time to come. From a people point of view, it's very, very critical. Of course, like every other company has, we have gone also to virtual working, and we are actively and we have encouraged people to work from homes. And of course, it comes with very unique challenges in terms of how do you manage the bandwidth of your network, the private networks that we have for the employees. How do you make sure that you're protecting yourself against phishing and all the kind of cyber threats that we are witnessing? There is a spike of cyber threats at this point in time. And we need to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, because unfortunately, the criminals look at this purely as an opportunity to exploit the vulnerable. And that's something which we have to be protecting ourselves. And we are trying to sort of over communicate. In situations like this, there is nothing called over communication. So we are constantly talking to each other, constantly connecting with each other. We got crisis management teams and trying to update each other, support each other. And we are having also, because people are working from home, you've got a situation where the personal life and the family life blend together. And in a way that could be very disruptive to both the personal life as well as the work life. So, for example, when you're at home and you've got small kids, what do? You just ignore them. They're crying. They're seeking attention. They're all sitting at home because the schools are closed. So what some of the things that we have tried to do is to have very defined breaks for our people, literally saying that from 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning or 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, whatever is the time, don't schedule any meetings. So that will help people to focus on the family. Likewise, at lunchtime, make sure that there is a 1 hour break that's clean and clear, so that people are not bothered during that time. They can focus on their personal lives, and we don't have any calls or meetings scheduled during that time. Doing a small, a lot of things small in nature, but each one has got an additive and an incremental benefit and feel for the consumers and for our people, and make their lives a little more easier. We're also looking at this as an opportunity where they can invest in learning. A number of courses are available for them. We are actively encouraging them to either enroll for some courses or read up and upgrade their skills, upgrade their knowledge, and make sure that they are staying contemporary, they're staying in touch with the cutting edge. So a whole bunch of things that we are trying to do. And it's been quite an interesting time how the teams are bonding together and also coming up with such brilliant ideas which don't cost money. That's the beauty of it, which is we know that we are all under budget pressures, but not every marketing idea needs to be backed by huge dollars. So we have been trying and focusing on those kind of areas And I think, at this point in time, as marketers, again, I would say we have to be empathetic, we have to be sensitive and sensible, we have to be compassionate, and we have to do what is right for the people. This is not the time for price gouging if you have an opportunity. This is not the time that you have to peddle your products because you have an opportunity to sort of, come in there. Consumers will see through it. They will remember you for what you have done. You do good to them in the times of crisis. They stick with you when the times are good. And I think that's probably, for me, it summarizes what the entire current pandemic is like and how we have been trying to tackle at our end. And I have also been in regular touch with a whole bunch of other CMOs and trying to learn from some of the good things that they are doing. In this scenario, it is not about trade secrets, right? If somebody is doing something good which is working in their organization, I think we should absolutely not have any ego to reach out to them, learn what they are doing, and then implement those best practices.